Welcome back to the OnPoint Podcast, where medical affairs meets action. Today's guest is Joyce Lo, Director of Medical Omnichannel Strategy at Blueprint Medicines. And she's someone that's not just talking about omnichannel, she's actually building it. From leading digital transformation at Apellis to standing up omnichannel at Blueprint, Joyce brings a rare blend of strategic vision and operational execution. So in this episode, we are unpacking what always-on engagement really looks like, the systems behind it, and the challenges teams face when making omnichannel a reality. If you're ready to move beyond theory and instill omnichannel strategies that create engagement with HCPs, this episode's for you. Welcome to OnPoint, the medical excellence podcast where we talk to pharma leaders about how to build highly effective medical affairs organizations. Joyce is here to share her personal experience and opinions. They don't necessarily represent the organizations that she works for. Joyce, I'm so glad to finally have you on the OnPoint Podcast. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Scott. So happy to be here. This is definitely a hot topic. Lots of buzzwords, omnichannel. Every session you go to will probably talk about omnichannel or AI. It's one or the other. So
we're both at the same time, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So let's maybe just set the stage first, because everybody could hear the word digital, AI, omnichannel, and mean different things. What does it mean for you, just so we can work within that?
Yeah. And I think really simplistically, and you've probably heard this a million times, but I really think it boils down to right channel, right content, right customer. There's so many different rights you could add to it, but really thinking about all of that is crucial for omnichannel. And with the right channel, it brings medical into a very interesting space, right? Where we've always been we've always had that scientific exchange, and we will continue to have scientific exchange through our MSL teams, through advisory boards, all that great stuff. But with omnichannel, we're realizing that our customers or our physicians may actually prefer these digital channels, which is why you're seeing a lot of that digital conversations come into place.
Got it. So let's unpack that for a minute, because right channel, right customer, right person, right stakeholder, right place. Traditionally, like if I look at most medical affairs teams 7 years ago, there was one or two channels, right? With MSLs, MedInfo, and a booth, right?
And maybe a website.
And maybe a website, and it was primarily focused on KOL, but each channel, like MSLs were looking at KOLs and MedInfo were more for providers. What do you mean now? What's changing? Why are we looking at bringing all that together?
Yeah, that is a great point. So I think the really one of the biggest pushes for omnichannel is that our field team, our med info team, they can't reach every single physician out there. And there's so much to educate on, whether it's the disease state, whether it's our data, diagnosis, whatever the topic is, there's so much to be able to educate on. And that's why we're seeing more of these digital channels being activated, because we are realizing that we can reach so much more beyond what the face-to-face interactions have been with our MSL team or others. So I think that's why we're seeing it much more now.
Awesome. Yeah. So I'm seeing that also, where the remit of medical affairs is expanding. If you try to do that, you can't 10x with the same resources. So you need to find a new way of doing it. And this omni-channel and these digital channels seem to be a much more scalable way to get there.
Yeah, definitely. And then it's very, in my experience, I've noticed it can be therapeutic area specific too, but also where you are currently in the life cycle stage, right? If it's early on, pre-launch, you're doing a lot of disease education, you want to reach as much as you can. But then also, when thinking about your therapeutic area, are people more on social within? Do they prefer more digital channels? So there's a lot of nuances, I would say, even before you get started, that you have to evaluate, which I think is crucial to think about.
Got it. So where do people start? Like, is adding bulk email, is that channel now? Is that where we're headed? How do you start this?
Yeah, I think it's really important, as I was mentioning, to think about what the goal is for omnichannel and think about, is it to amplify your data? Is it to provide more disease education? Is it to help improve diagnosis? The path to diagnosis could be very long, especially for something in rare disease. Is it to help recruit for a clinical trial? Like, really think about the, like, fundamental goals of what you're trying to accomplish with omnichannel, and then from there, and understanding what your customers prefer in terms of content, what that those educational gaps are, then decide, like, what channels can help execute and reach the goals that you're looking for. So, email might be email, it might be a social post, it might be banner ad, whatever it may be, really just make sure that you have your goals set in place before you even start thinking about your channels.
Got it. So let's dig into the goals because the goals that you mentioned don't necessarily even sound like an omni-channel goal. It sounds like an engagement strategy goal.
Right.
So, what are some of the goals that you're finding lend themselves well to using omni-channel as a way to get there?
Yeah. In my experience, disease state education has been an important goal, especially like I mentioned, if you're pre-launch, medical can play a huge role before there's a product on the market in providing that. And like I said, sometimes the field team just can't reach all the physicians that we want to educate on. So it's important to see what other channels we may be able to activate. So disease state education, something that may come down the line. It's very new for medical, I will admit, but data amplification, right? And seeing if we have pivotal phase 3 trials, for example,
Mhm.
and we're publishing a lot on those trials, are people even seeing it? Are people seeing what we're publishing? And how can we help get that message or get that data out to people who want to hear more, but may not necessarily attend a conference or be reading the New England Journal or following them every day?
Got it. So, can we maybe just go back in time for a minute to when you were first having this conversation? You said things like advertise and banner ads and make people proactively aware, reaching out, letting people know we have new data. And it seems like a lot of traditional medical affairs compliance conversations wouldn't even fathom those concepts. So, like, where did you start in that conversation?
Yeah. If anyone from compliance or legal or regulatory are watching this, they're probably like, so many alerts are going off in their heads, definitely. Whenever I talk with anyone who's new to omnichannel, I always start by thinking about ourselves as consumers and how we like to receive information, especially since COVID. There's been our attention spans are so short. We like bite-sized content. If you're sending me an email and it's not relevant to what I want or the product I was looking at, like I'm deleting it right away. And I think like putting into the perspective of ourselves as consumers and our HCPs are no different, right? If we're not meeting them where they wanna be met in terms of that education, and medical is really focused on educating our physicians so they have all the information that they need.
I know I was in a conversation recently where I said, "Can I just ask some silly questions?" So, disease state or diagnosis, like pre-treatment decision, are we allowed to talk about that? Can an MSL talk to a HCP one-on-one about that proactively? And they're like, yes. What if I sent them an email? Is that okay? Yep. What if I direct messaged them? Yep. Could I talk to 10 at the same time? They're like, yeah. How about 1,000? What? Mm. I really like taking this step by step is like we have to meet everybody where they are.
Yeah,
I don't want.
and it and that's I love those questions because that's a very similar approach that I've been taking is like, where can we like how can we gradually get there? I'm not gonna go and full blown out omni-channel execution and be sending out all these emails and having all these banner ads everywhere and driving people to X, Y, and Z. But like, what are the baby steps that we can take where the risk could potentially be there, but it's on the lower side, and then see how it works and see if it's working. Measurement is a huge key to omnichannel, but let's start small and, like you said, bring those cross-functional partners along with us on the journey.
Yeah. So where you said to start is to have goals, but the goals aren't omni-channel goals. They're like, what are you trying to accomplish? Now let's take it down to the next level. So let's say you have a goal around increasing awareness of data or driving education around some disease state materials. Now you pick tactics and channels that have to do with omnichannel. How do you know if they're working? Like, how would you measure a channel or an approach is useful?
Uh, Measurement, as I mentioned, is a huge part of omnichannel, and I think this push towards omnichannel that we're seeing also ties around measurement impact in general for medical affairs. People and leadership are looking to see beyond how many insights we've collected, how many interactions we've had, how many publications we've published. We're really trying to see what the impact of medical affairs efforts really are. And omnichannel is a great way to achieve that because it can provide more quantitative metrics rather than what we typically see with insights, which is more qualitative. So we can, with the different digital channels, you have your basic measurements. You can check open rates on an email or click the rates on a banner ad or an email if you have a link in it. But I challenge everyone to take it like a step further, right? If we're trying to see what that real world impact is, you're going to need more data than just the channel performance, right? Look at how marketing's been measuring their tactics, look at who within your organization has access to the data. Do you have to purchase this
Mhm.
data? So figuring all that out really early on, I think will definitely lead to success.
Um, So let's maybe just walk through the steps, right? So you have a therapeutic area lead or you have a medical strategist come to you and they probably don't say, I want to increase awareness or I want to drive down. They probably say, I want to send out an email.
Yeah.
How do you walk them through thinking about the next steps?
I always go back to send out this email and what do we think it's going to accomplish for us? And then from there, once you understand the goals, you can think about, okay, who would benefit from this email? What content do we want in this email? What's the timing of this email? Then you can get into the right content, right channel, right time. But really challenge and question, okay, why are we doing this? And where does it fit along our other channel mix or media mix or our engagement journey with this physician? Like, where does this email
Hmm.
fit within all of that?
Yeah, I love your opinion on that piece around fit because your kind of early examples were maybe there's HCPs MSLs are not reaching out to. Maybe there's an audience that we is new to us. But you're also implying that sometimes that audience can overlap. So how do you determine what that flow could look like and how do you communicate that and get everybody to buy in?
Yeah, one of the important things and one of the things we talk about a lot is that customer journey, right? Either with the disease state or with your product, depending again on your goals for omnichannel. What does that customer journey look like? And then also that will help you with your segmentation. That's another buzzword we hear a lot and something important to omnichannel, but what is it exactly? And that is can be defined in different ways, but ideally you can't sorry, going back. Um, you can't at this point, at least I haven't been able to achieve that one-to-one, like really personalized omni-channel communication. So the first step in my mind is like to break out your HCPs into segments based on their current understanding and their scientific awareness
Mhm.
of either your disease or your product. And you can have as many segments as you want. And then from there, you'll start to see, okay, how do we move them along this journey? What channels, what content, and then how are we measuring all of that too? So there's a lot of pieces, I think, some people don't realize there's a lot of different pieces to omnichannel that you have to take into consideration. But really want to stress that like understanding what your goals and what your KPIs are and how you're going to measure success is really important before you even start thinking about channels and content.
So it sounds like you've got maybe a stack of goals. There's this goal of changing a certain clinical behavior, and there's a goal that leads to that around changing what somebody understands or knows or believes. And then there's a goal of we want to have a certain group of people have this interaction because we think that it'll change that. But you have to kind of stack them. And then how do you know and how do you test if our assumptions were right and make adjustments?
Yeah, I think that's where understanding what data sets you have is important and what you want to measure to test that success. If the goal is to drive more traffic to your medical affairs website, then something as simple as creating campaign specific URLs so that you can see which campaign is bringing in more traffic. That's something that I think is very tangible for medical affairs team to start doing if you're not doing that already. But again, it goes back to, okay, let's see what data we have, what data we potentially need to purchase in order to measure what we want to measure.
Got it. So you said the word campaign, and that sounds like a marketing term.
Yeah.
But can you just maybe tell everybody, like, what is a campaign?
Yeah. I think it depends um, on, again, you can define it your own way. The way I think about a campaign is like, what for a certain period, what do you want to educate on? And what are the core messages that you want to educate on? So if it's during a Congress time, you could have a Congress specific campaign, and the data that you're publishing or presenting could be the core data or the core messages that you want. And then you think about the channels and the media and the measurement to it. Or you could do a disease education campaign that could span a whole year and touch different audiences. So it I think campaigns can vary in terms of time and content, but it has an overall goal, I would say.
Got it. You could, in theory, have 10 campaigns happening at the same time. That seems a little chaotic.
Yeah, it's a lot.
How would you start, and then how would you scale to doing more than one at the same time?
Yeah, we love to use our pilots, and I know people get sick of hearing we're going to pilot this and pilot that, but I think starting small and doing a true test of an omni-channel, very personalized education, if you want to say campaign, is important before you go like full blown. If you even want to hit 10 campaigns at one time, that's very ambitious. But yeah, I think starting small, seeing, what resources you have, what content you have, again, understanding your goals, executing on it, measuring it, and seeing the success, and then going from there.
So here's a question that I've been asked a couple of times. Can you truly be omni-channel if you're only doing it within medical affairs?
My answer is no. I'm curious to hear your thoughts, but I think with omnichannel, it's definitely an enterprise-wide, a company-wide solution. And so something that is definitely important is to talk with your cross-functional teams, whether I learn a lot from my marketing teams, to be honest. They have a lot more digital channels activated. They've been doing multi-channel, omni-channel for a lot longer. So I learned a lot. I learned to see what they measure, how they measure, and all of that stuff. So it's really important to talk with your cross-functional colleagues. Corp comms also very important team to talk to. And then really think about going back to that customer journey. It's like, what's that journey with the company and not just with medical? If you can think about that journey with the company and then see, okay, where does medical fit in? Where does marketing fit in? And map that out. I mean, that's amazing. And that I would say is like true omni-channel because you're really putting the HCP or whatever customer in the center of everything that you're doing for whatever company you work for.
Couldn't agree more. I think that if you can't explain to two intelligent humans when to communicate to each other between commercial and you can't program a computer to do it. Can you share just a story? Just tell us like about one win. Just like what was that moment where you're like, wow, that thing actually just worked.
Yeah. I think one of my one of the biggest, oh my goodness, that was amazing moment was probably like sending out my first email and working with my commercial colleagues to do that and understanding because we had a list of HCPs who's consented to receive information from us. But then we had to figure out, okay, which of those that have consented are more medically focused versus commercial focused, and how are we going to build that content journey with our list. And so that when the email was sent out and we were able to track the standard open rates and click-through rates, like that was a great moment because that was one of the first emails we ever did. And it was a medical focus email. But I think the best part was that we collaborated with our marketing and commercial team to do that. And we were both under the same understanding that, okay, these are the people that would prefer a more medical focused, scientific email versus these people who might prefer something more patient stories or something more commercial focused. So yeah, I think the process and then the end result was really amazing to see. And then we ended up sending another one as well a few months later.
As you look back at the last few times you've done this, what were some of the biggest barriers, the biggest lessons learned? Oh man, I wish I knew that.
Yeah. I think for me is really having compliance, legal, regulatory, everyone understand your goal for omnichannel up front. And we said this a couple of times, but bring them along with you because there can be times where, since this is a new concept, there can be times where you're at the review stage, the MLR review stage, and they're like, you can't do this. You're medical, you're reactive, right? And you're like, no, let's go back. Let's go back to the goals and why we're doing this and why we wanna do this. So if you do that upfront, I think it'll save you a lot of time and discussion later on, and then it can make sure that you're meeting your timelines too for the campaign because it takes a long time as for content development and the MLR review edits and all of that. So you wanna make sure that when you do get to the review process that you have a good idea of what those comments might be.
Got it. So let's talk about somebody who has been thinking about omnichannel for years. They've been to all of the presentations where they showed the same slide, omnichannel bridge. Like they've seen it 100 times, but they've been hesitant to take a very first step. Like, how do you just get started? What do you do first?
Yeah, it's definitely a conversation to have with your I would say with your medical team or your medical leadership team, with your manager, maybe even to start and just seeing and saying, this is what the gap is. And this is why I think omnichannel can solve that gap. I think that's really the first step in the conversation. And then once you have that buy-in
Mm,
and budget's very important. Once you have the buy-in and the budget to do it, then you start thinking about, again, what that journey looks like. Who do you want to educate? What does the segmentation look like? And what content, messages, the scientific narrative is really important to look at. That's like my Bible at times. Okay, what are the core messages we want across the content? Yeah, I think starting with what are the gaps and how do we fill those gaps with omnichannel? If omnichannel is an answer, sometimes it's not, you know?
absolutely. Yeah, what I love about that is I think people will sometimes go into this thinking, okay, we are going to revolutionize and completely change the way medical affairs operates.
Yeah.
That's really scary and big compared to, hey, could we take 3 months and just try something and try one or two channels and reach a very specific group and let's just see how that goes.
Yeah.
You don't have to change.
And one of Yeah, no, exactly. And one of the great quotes that I've heard that has always stuck with me with omnichannel and medical affairs is like we've been doing like MSLs do omnichannel in their interactions. They do personalized education. They know what time of day a physician prefers, if they prefer face to face, if they want to be on Zoom call or Teams call. They know all that information. They know what questions the physician could ask. They're tailoring all of that. And what really the recent push for omnichannel is just doing that at scale. If your field team can't reach every single doctor that you want to reach, how do we do exactly what the field team is doing, but at a larger scale? So that's always stuck with me. And I think it is really important because the field team plays a huge role in omni-channel and support. They're just a huge channel, one channel, but a huge channel in the entire mix.
That was gold. Love that. So let me ask you, you did a PharmD program. How many omni-channel classes did you take in your PharmD plan?
0. Someone asked me the other day and asked me because I was talking about my role, and they asked me, "Is your background in marketing or omni-channel specifically?" And I said, "No, I'm PharmD. I'm a pharmacist." But yeah,
That's
it's just funny.
where do you go to learn stuff? Like for you, if somebody wanted to learn and get ahead of this, where do you go?
Yeah. I would say when I first started learning more about digital and omni-channel and what there was, a lot of webinars. You can find a lot of different conferences that now focus on medical and digital and omni-channel specifically. I would say one of the biggest resources in starting out was actually MAPS, the Medical Affairs Professional Society. They had some really great resources. That's where I heard the MSL's been doing omni-channel since the start of MSLs. So I learned a lot from there. And then just meeting people who are starting their journey or have been through more and talking with them. It's a small community, but just learning from each other is really important because I think we're all on the same boat with it.
Very cool. Tell me what's next, right? So you've done the experiment a few times, you've had some wins. Uh, you're going to keep going with this. So what
Yeah.
do you see coming next? What's changing? Where do you go from here?
Yeah, for me right now, it's really I'm seeing what data we can pull in to help measure. So measurement is a huge focus for me right now and making sure that we're actually making an impact with our initiatives, a real world impact. It's not just that we're sending an email and getting someone to open it, but it's okay, then what do they do next? Did they go meet with an MSL? Did they go to our website? What was that next action? And then did it help drive a diagnosis? How did that conversation continue, basically? For me, it's really trying to tie all the pieces together and be able to show because of this, we were able to achieve this, which I haven't been able to do yet, but I'm hoping to get there eventually.
Yeah, I think the hard part is it's what's the saying? You can, everybody wants to take credit for the boiling bubble, but the only thing we can take credit for is turning up the heat. Mhm. And the time frame is a little bit too far apart sometimes and not always
Yeah.
fun. But I
Exactly.
love that you've got some measurements around, is it making progress? Like even
Right.
if it resulted in that, did it move us closer?
And I think that's like the $1,000,000 question for medical affairs right now. Are we making an impact?
Yeah. I don't want to be a doomsday guy, but what's the impact of a GPT, LLM, AI world with this where physicians may not want inbound anymore because they can just ask the magic machine any question they have?
AI has played a, a huge role. It's part of our lives every day. And I think I would say TBD on the true impact. I think again, it goes back to understanding your customers, and that if they are more scientific and maybe less tech savvy, they might still be going to those traditional journals. But those who are more tech savvy might just be going to a chat GBT or a Copilot to ask the answer. You can see that there are potentially opportunities to also be there where, again, meeting them where they're at. If they are wanting to ask AI a question, are there opportunities to also be able to get some content or education where they're going? So that might be in the future.
Yeah. Are there any kind of emerging topics? Anything that is, what's your next big question? What are you trying to figure out the answer to?
Beside the measurement, I would say one thing that I didn't mention yet is another huge buzzword, but that next best action, and it ties into the AI. AI can play a huge role in next best action, but you could also do it very simply too, and just like rules-based next best action. But I think that is something that companies are looking into, right? What's the next best content? What's the next best channel? Physicians viewed this. Okay, what's next for them? Let's measure that. Okay, then what's next? And have it be more automated
Yeah.
than manual.
Yeah, I've implemented rules-based for medical a bunch of times. And
Yeah,
you say, hey, here's 50 rules. Which ones like do you want to notify for? I think the biggest challenge with a AI assisted next best action tool is going to be the same thing that you said for omnichannel, is that if we don't have a clear goal for the AI to work on and say, hey, our goal is changing this belief from here to here as measured by this.
right.
Now, if you can show that and you have that, let's say every MSL is measuring a belief scale in their insights platform, and when HTTPs interact with content on the website, or if they ask a question to MedInfo, if we're capturing enough data of do you believe X, Y, or Z, then you have something for AI to optimize against, to say, the goal is to change this belief from here to here. Here's all these other variables. Which ones are affiliate? But without the goal, you can't.
And then with the goals, like you're mentioning, you need to know what steps it'll take a physician to get to that goal, right?
Yeah. And if you don't have the foundation of that, you can't. I have a mentor who calls it broccoli and chocolate. Everybody wants the chocolate, but you need to have the broccoli first. Uh, but you can't just go to AI and say, how do I make this happen? So I asked you that one question, but I laughed because I've yet to have a medical strategist come and say, I am trying to change this behavior, and here's the belief I'm trying to change. And hence, I would like to see an increase of downloads of this. And so if somebody doesn't have Joyce to walk them through, like, connecting those dots, like, how do we help teams get there?
This is a hard question. I think we'll all eventually get there. I think there's enough buzz in the medical affairs world, and people are seeing the impact that it could have to have this like tailored and personalized education. I think we'll all get there eventually. It's really just having someone who can think from that specific lens and ask those questions. Because I think, to your point, right now, we all know that this is important. We all know like omnichannel is probably being talked about at every
Yeah.
company at this point. But it's okay. How can we, who knows, or who can help us walk us through the steps
Mhm.
and ask the right questions along the way to help us get there? Because I think everyone's saying we need omni-channel, but it's like, okay, let's dial back. Why do we need it? How are we going to measure it? And then, okay, these are the steps that we should take. I will say, like I mentioned earlier, like I've learned a lot from my marketing colleagues.
Yeah.
They've definitely taught me a lot in what I know today about channels, about media, about measurement. So definitely, if someone on your team is interested in learning more, that might be a great like internal starting point, in addition to all the great like webinars and sessions there are out there.
Yeah, it seems like if I had to pick an investment, it's better to invest in learning to think this way than it is to learn how to push the buttons in Salesforce Marketing Cloud.
Yeah.
Because you can find somebody to help you push the buttons. You can go to your commercial cloud, you can go to an agency, but you can't outsource the thinking because they
Yeah,
don't know the science. Okay.
exactly. And even with my role, I work very closely with the med directors, the publication teams. I work even within medical very closely because, like, I may be able to strategize the different channels and what messages and what content we can create, what like bite-sized content outside from a big giant poster. But I do rely on the other team members to say, okay, this fits our strategy, this fits our narrative, this is exactly what we want to be educating and putting out there.
This has been just a fantastic conversation. If anybody who's listening wanted to reach out and ask questions, you always seem like an open book. Can we put your like LinkedIn information in the
Yeah,
show notes?
definitely. Yes, please reach out. Happy to talk. As you can see, I'm very passionate. Hopefully that came through. I'm very passionate about omnichannel. It's very exciting to me. I know there's a lot of steps to it, and I faced a lot of the challenges that come with it. So happy to talk through any of the challenges that you may be facing and just meet.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I took away, I have 5, 6 things like when I go back and I'm working with clients on their strategies that I'm going to definitely pull out of this. So thank you so much for sharing.
No, thanks for having me. This is great.
Absolutely. Thank you.